Yesterday, I found a very random thing about myself, and I'm sure that I'm not the only driver who does this. So I was driving to work yesterday and I stopped. The other direction was going. This car came around the corner, and obviously I'm the person, I'm observing my surroundings and looking around. The car comes around the corner and we have eye contact, like direct, like we actually knew that both of us looked at each other. It was very awkward for that 30 seconds or so, and I like whipped my head away and I was so awkward and uncomfortable. I was like, so this is a thing I have. I'm just wondering, do you guys have this weird thing? Do you guys notice if this happens? Do you enjoy it? Do you like making eye contact with random strangers when you're driving? I have just come to realize I do not. It freaks me out, and I only realized this yesterday because it's the first time it's happened in a long time, and I was like, all right, I cannot be the only one with this weird thing. Hi everybody, my name's Rebecca and welcome back to My Bookish Travels. Today I'm going to be wrapping up the month of June, so if you guys are interested in seeing the 5 books that I read, then stick around because that's what we're going to be discussing. The first book that I read was a Kindle book. It was one of the Kindle Harlequin romances, and it was called Married for the Italian's Heir. Now, the manga was created by Kazuna Uchida, but the original author was Rachel Thomas. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I actually really enjoyed this story. I think it was very well done. I loved the art style. I loved the actual story itself, and I just found that it definitely helped me when I was going through my reading slump reading this one. It kind of brought back that vigor of enjoyment and love for reading, and I definitely think you should check that one out. As I've said before, I've had some hits and I've had some misses, and I usually try to veer you away from the ones that are misses, because if it's the first time you're going to go into reading one of the Harlequin manga romances, I would hate for you to read one that you're like, this sucks, I cannot believe I spent like $7 buying this. I understand. There's ones that you're like, it wasn't worth it. Others, you're like, this was so worth every penny. The next one that I read was Hard Magic by Larry Correia, and it was narrated by Bronson Pinchot. I do not think I'm saying that last name correctly. This one I listened as an Audible, and it was amazing. This fantasy alternate history was, I don't even know how to describe it to you guys. I feel like it's a little bit of X-Men, and it's a little bit of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children mashed together and kind of presented to you during a war. If that can be any way to describe it, that's kind of the best way that I can with trying to explain what to expect with this story. My word, this was brilliant. I have been wanting to read this for a while. I'm so glad I got the Audible because it gave me the opportunity to just kind of listen to the fantasy, because I feel like sometimes when I read fantasy, I do get caught off and I'm having a hard time picturing certain things, but the narrator for this was so talented that it definitely added the next level for this story, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because it was worth every moment I spent listening to this story being read to me. Next one, that again, it was another Audible original, and it was How to Outperform. The main narrator was Lisa Mainwaring. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It just didn't produce what I was expecting it to. I will say that a lot of the information I found was very interesting with regards to the different areas that they were looking at for how these areas outperform others in that area, but in general, I think I was expecting a little bit more than I actually got from the audiobook itself. If any of you have actually listened to this one, I would love to have a conversation with you about what your thoughts were, because I don't know, I feel like it was just lacking what the description was saying it was going to produce. I feel like although some of them were outperforming, some of them were outperforming in what I would view as a negative, output, whereas others I saw were outperforming in a positive output. So that was kind of my takeaway, and I think that's why I gave it 3 out of 5, because I think that in aspects of outperforming, I understand that there's good and bad, but I also understand that for some people, that kind of outperforming in a negative way isn't necessarily the best motivation. And the final book that I read was The Earl and the Fairy Volume 3 by Mizu Tani. And I obviously gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Rereading this series again has been such a joy. I was so amazed reading this one because, again, for those of you that may have watched my previous month where I had read The Earl and the Fairy Volume 2, it kind of felt like the story ended there, and it could have ended, but having another third and a fourth volume to close off the series, it kind of gives you what happens next, and I'm really enjoying it. This one, I cannot wait to read the fourth volume because there's some stuff that goes down in here that I just want to know what the outcome is, and I have just so been enjoying this. So if you guys have not read The Earl and the Fairy, I highly recommend getting your hands on some copies and reading them. It's so worth it, and I'm pretty positive by the time I finish the fourth volume, I'm probably going to be getting a subscription to Crunchyroll so that I can watch all of my favorite anime, because sometimes they don't always put it out on DVDs, whereas The Earl and the Fairy is not one that the actual anime is out on DVD, and I know that these are inspired from the anime, so it'd be nice to see the original work. Everyone, it's future Rebecca in the video. I don't know why, but my math was way off. I ended up actually reading 6 books in June. I don't know why I forgot about this one, but as I was editing the video, all of a sudden I realized that this book was not mentioned at all. It is The Debt-Free Forever book written by Gail Vox Oxlade, and I actually listened to this on Audible, and it's narrated by the author, which I think is great. I grew up watching Till Death Do Us Part, so it was a little bit nostalgic, and I'm not in any type of debt at all, but this was one of the editor extras that they gave couple months ago for free, and I ended up really enjoying this. I found that there was a lot of information provided that was really good for your finances if you didn't already know it. The thing with it was she goes over a lot of different situations that you could be having issues with and not even realizing it, and how to kind of conquer that and be able to make it work. And I think there were so many good points that I hadn't really thought of myself, that I feel like this book is a guidebook for your finances. If you are not in debt, if you are in debt, if you care about your finances at all, please go and check out this book. I highly recommend it. She talks at a very neutral level where she tells it as it is. She doesn't care. You don't like it? She's like, okay, then just go buy another thing that you don't actually need. Like, she says it how she means it, and you always know where you stand with her as the author. And she makes it quite plain that when it comes to your finances, either you need to smarten up and take a keen interest in them, or your finances are never going to be what you want them to be. And I so love this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely love this book. Highly recommend it. There you guys have it. that is my wrap up for June. Not too bad when you think about it for a month that I'm still kind of feeling the effects of my reading slump, slowly getting back out there with my reading. So I've really enjoyed the ones that I read. I didn't have a lot of disappointments in June, and that is so important, I find, when I'm going through a reading slump. So I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to this. If you guys have any questions about any of the books that I read, feel free to comment down below. I would definitely be happy to discuss with you there more. And again, if you guys want to share what your top read for the month of June was, I would love to hear that. I always love to hear what people are reading or what their favorite read was for the month, considering the fact that we have so many different books that we can read. And again, we're not going to have the opportunity to read absolutely every book in existence during our lifetime. So I love hearing more about books, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.